Good morning, everybody, and it's a great pleasure to have four top specialists in the flexible office market here today, with a very strong Dutch influence here. There's a few of you today, so very difficult names to pronounce for me. So we have on the right Martijn, who just flew in from the Netherlands, from Amsterdam today. He's the founder and managing director of Spaces. Spaces is a fantastic new workplace. Well, not so new, set up in 2006, but created beautiful environments in Amsterdam and recently acquired by Regus, big corporate operator, and now with 8 spaces in mostly in Europe, but you're opening up in the States very soon, I believe.
New York, Melbourne, the world.
Fantastic. Well, you heard already from Eric, who's the head of Level 39. You're now starting up actually, you have, can we disclose it?
Yes,
you're
of course.
actually joining one of your, a new project?
That's right. Entic is a company we started at a similar time, which was providing a lot of the innovation programs here. But I've decided to go deep and focus on Entic, which are doing things like creating programs like Cognicity, and also we have a lab working on blockchain technology because I think it's one of the most important innovations I've seen in 25 years.
Fantastic. And Devin, you're flying in from New York today. You are
Yes.
the employee number 4, if not mistaken,
Yes.
of WeWork, this big giant. They say it's going to be the Starbucks of offices. Starbucks has got 60,000 locations worldwide, so
I don't know if
WeWork is going to dominate the world for flexible office market.
Yeah, growing very quickly. And I was going to tell Juliette, we are 5 years old, so your son still has some time to improve his network with a few billion.
And of course, Juliette, we know each other for many years. You have a great experience within the flexible office market from different angles, from business parks, I remember many years ago, to traditional landlords. The head of tech for Cushman & Wakefield, but at the same time you also have a great responsibility within tech city in the UK, so we really have a good vision of what's happening in the flexible office market. Great, well, I have actually, if you can please connect, I have to be honest, I outsource a very little overview, just to give a little bit of context of the co-working market and the flexible office market and how people are working. This is a Dutch digital nomad. His name is Peter, and he's traveling around the world. He set up some blogs and some YouTube channels with several 100,000 visitors, and he's giving some key facts about the future of work. There will be 1 billion digital nomads in 20 years' time, by 2035. So you will see this is a trend of the freelance population in the States. Very soon, currently at 30%, possibly within the next 20 years, that will reach 50% of the workforce. Currently, we're enjoying very fast internet. I don't know what speed you have here, Eric.
Limitless.
Okay. Well, the average speed of our business, of our co-working spaces at eOffice are 100, 200 megabytes per second. Now, as you see, with technological advances, that will increase considerably in the next few years, potentially up to 100 gig per second. Some very interesting data, social statistics, the marital status of the US population going down, and with that, home ownership. So again, shared economy, everybody's renting flats now, and more young people can't afford to buy houses. Simultaneously, it's very easy to travel. The cost of travel is decreasing. I'm not so sure whether you will be able to fly from Berlin to London in 30 minutes, perhaps. So fast, cheap internet, cheap air travel, lots of freelancers, no marriages, no ownership. everybody working from coffee bars. This is actually a co-working space in Bali. So that's where Peter is actually based most of the time. That's a nice view. 9 billion people, 50% freelancers, 1 in 3 will be nomads. 1 billion nomads. All living in many of them live in big cities, green cities perhaps, tech cities. Tinder, dating sites, people meeting, having babies, mixed babies, and then all the location. So big numbers, and just that's a little contest on content contest on the co-working market. Now, talking back more, discussing about the office market, have the landlords finally waking up, do you think, to the reality of the freelance economy? Martin, what do you think?
We started Spaces in 2008 with opening a building in Amsterdam where the day we opened Lehman Brothers fell. So this was not the best moment to start a new business in real estate, but it was also, I think, changing point of indeed the sharing and participating economy. And we bought the building then, and we sold it 6 years ago, and we had a yield when we started about 9.5%, and we sold with a yield below 5. And there you see the cash yield structure, the more flexibility structure, and that way, not only focusing on single tenants, but on the diversity of indeed creating a more community-driven building, becomes also for investors more popular. So yeah, for real estate positioning, I think the flexibilization and the trend of service offices and the new world of working is a plus.
Eric, what is your connection with, how did it start with Canary Wharf? Huge property company, very conservative, in the heart of the financial district here in London. How did they decide to set up this fintech, huge, fantastic, very successful space?
Well, I remember meeting Sir George Iacovescu, the Chairman Chief Executive, at a Olympic Legacy dinner, and he asked me this question while I was doing the tech city work for the UK government with Juliette. He said, does this area have an authentic proposition for tech companies? And that was a mature kind of question to ask, because it wasn't a case of, oh, let's open a cubby hole and see if people will come and be flexible. It had to have a really authentic proposition. And I was actually going to do a fintech company, because my background is in fintech entrepreneurship, and so I said, well, there isn't actually a specialist fintech hub, and that is a narrative the world would understand for this district. So let's be bold and create something very significant here for that. I have to say, it exceeded all of our expectations, because we've had over 1,500 companies apply to be here, and we accepted just under 200. What a terrific opportunity to be in. But that also tells you there should be maybe 10 fintech hubs in London because of the capacity in the market. Of course, they weren't all appropriate, but we figured out, and when you said, have landlords got it yet? So we had to figure out what was, you're quite right, a traditional way of filling a building, creating a lease, a long-term lease. And we had to figure out how to create licenses, be flexible. And yes, there's a bigger overhead in that you're administering a lot more licenses, and you've got to allow for the fact that although you're mostly full, there's going to be a percentage churn, but actually you want to encourage that flow, because then we launched very quickly, 9 months later, the High Growth Space 42, where companies are sort of between 10 and 30 people big, but still connected with what you said, the community here. So we ring the cookie bell, everybody comes and grabs their cookie, and now we're on our 3rd floor. So maintaining that flexibility and community as the companies grow up, and then eventually they will want security of tenure. And so that's why they're then able to go and take a regular lease themselves on the floor, make a commitment to a space for, say, 10 years or more. And so they do flow into the traditional products.
Devin, WeWork started in 2010. I visited New York in 2010, and I thought the market was absolutely backward in terms of flexible office space with all these cubicles, very horrible, very few little independent operators, very low quality. And but then you came, and how did you manage to convince the landlords? How you recently did a very big deal here in the UK with some very traditional, huge landlords like British Land. I think you took 70 or 80,000 square feet in Bishopgate.
Yeah, and I think our Moorgate building is actually one of the biggest co-working spaces in the world in terms of square footage at this point. I mean, in the early days, you know, it was a lot of finding the kind of weird landlord who's been sitting on a building for a while, and really a lot of our lease negotiation was just convincing them to take a chance on us and the entire like concept of co-working, collaborative office space. But yeah, now, you know, 5 years later, it's a much different landscape, and we're partnering with, you know, rather large developers and kind of being courted by them as opposed to trying to convince people to take a chance on us. And we're actually even working right now on our first ground up building that we're partnering with Boston Properties in Brooklyn in the Navy Yard, and that should be a huge amount of square footage, about 1 million square feet, that will be basically almost entirely co-working.
And you're also looking at co-living, if not mistaken. We live.
Yeah, nothing I can really talk about now, but yeah, there's been a lot of buzz of that being in the works.
Just between us.
Juliette, what is your experience also within public administration? We noticed that some of the London boroughs recently supported co-working initiatives. You may know of the Westminster Hub, which is 40% owned by the City of Westminster. Most recently, the Royal Borough of Chelsea and Kensington is collaborating with the Collective by Holland Park to set up, I think, 10,000 square feet co-working space. Obviously, you're very close to Tech City. What is your experience of public administration as a building owner too?
I think there's an imperative within government and across government to look at their estates portfolio, and where there's consolidation of estates or there's available property, they're looking for how they can support the economy with that. And so there's been a political drive towards enabling co-working or accelerator spaces to come into publicly owned assets where they can't be sold off or used more efficiently for the public purse. So it's definitely an innovation driver from government. And the other thing we see is the Cabinet Office have been doing a lot to consolidate public services and using technology so that they can really see occupancy levels and demonstrate that they're using spaces efficiently, and they're actually ahead of the commercial sector in how they've adopted that technology, and full credit to them for working hard for the public purse to try and get that working more efficiently.
Fantastic. Now, where do you think the value lies? I mean, we have three main players here. We have the landlords that own the bricks, the land, and the buildings. You then have the operators. Both WeWork and Bridges, which are two of the largest players, don't own the buildings. They manage them. The office group, likewise, they mostly manage the spaces, and so all the co-working operators. And then you have big buzz around the shared economy, huge company valuations of concepts like Airbnb. Again, in the UK you have successful examples of Zoopla in prime locations. So where the value lies in owning the properties, managing them, or selling them and managing and capturing the clients or the members? Martin, what do you think?
It's always a cycle. It's quite simple. It's just the meaning of where the most of the money is. So it's a combination of private equity and pension funds. Of course, in the Netherlands we have a lot of pension money. And what you see is what's unique about what we're talking about is that work becomes a brand. It's like getting into, I call it myself the retailization of offices. So you have choices where your target audience is, where you can and want to work, which is an extension of how you are as a person and where you want to be connected to. And I think that's unique because work in the Netherlands was quite greyish, quite poor, boring, poor coffee, no plans, but it was just 9 to 5, go to an office, yes, I can go home, and now you want to stay at your office. A lot of our audience says, oh, my home becomes the same design as my office. So that's really, really positive. Next to the valuation structure is just, where do you believe in? Some believe in cash yield, some believe in traditional long-term commitment on London real estate. I think it's just a diversification of how to structure your money. Where you see, of course, the valuation of WeWork. If I knew that, I wouldn't have sold my business 1 year ago to Regis, of course. Quite simple, but it is a big change. And it came this rapidly, with Airbnb, with the Ubers, with, of course, all the fintech structures which become, we will pay without cash within 1 year for 80% within cities. So we have a rapid change within the tech. So that's Worktech, tech, but the way we live is, I think, unique, and that's the biggest chance we have now. And it's a joy and a lot of life that we can work this way. And yes, it is a global structure. 50% of the people are living in bigger cities, so yeah, we're all focusing on those cities. But are we competitors? No, we just the way we evolve and change in the way we work, and that is, I think, great. So it's put your money where your mouth is. It's just going to a long-term commitment. Can you make a yield? Within a world cycle, yes. Within a local cycle, it's difficult.
Certainly. Eric, do you think the new move from Canary Wharf has helped its share price?
Well, it's not a public company anymore, so it's certainly helped occupancy. I mean, you really now have to fight for any space in this building. I know I'm not going to get any more floors because the competition is very high for others, but obviously Canary Wharf is building the new part of Canary Wharf, the area formerly called Wood Wharf, about 20 acres just to the east of here. And there, of course, it's having that space as attractive to a more diverse tenant base. You know, companies like tech companies wanting to be closer to the types of businesses we have here. But there is a challenge that we have to think about coming up, because what we've not experienced in this cycle, in the co-work boom cycle, is an economic downturn. And that, of course, will be the real test of, I suppose, the authenticity of your offering, because the tenants that you have are going to be more fluid and able to leave should they, should the economics mean they can't. So that's going to be the real test, because I think what we believe is that that's where you'll blend between established lease tenants and the flexible tenants, together with the authenticity of your support for those, will be the real test of sustainability. And as you said, it's cyclic, right? So we've got to watch for that and plan for that. We're even helping some of our companies here think about, what would your company look like if there was an economic downturn? Would you still have a business model? So going that deep to work with them is generally more expensive than a co-working space can normally do, but it's an essential thing, I think, to do to plan for the future.
But Devin, you don't own any buildings. You already consider a unicorn of 1 billion, 5 billion market cap, not market cap, market valuation, I would say, or investor valuation rather. Where is the value? Where is the $5 billion valuation coming from? Is it from your growth prospects, from your online and connection?
I think it's a big part of the fact that people are really starting to join us and kind of buying into the fact that this is really a paradigm shift in the way that people work and the way that they approach workspaces in general, and that this isn't just kind of a hot trend or something that we'll turn down. And we're seeing obviously a lot of large companies that are embedding small amounts of people into the into our spaces in order to either have a satellite office because it's a lot easier and a lot more flexible for them, and then to also just tap into the network, like we said, with innovation to kind of be part of it. And I think that's really what it's about for us, is that we're not a real estate company, and that where a lot of the kind of discussion focuses around that, about just in terms of us as being sort of an interim landlord. When you look at it that way, you're kind of only looking at like a tiny slice of the pie of what WeWork is about. And it's really about kind of creating this network of creators kind of globally and putting them together and helping them connect.
Certainly. Juliette, asset-based, managed offices, or shared economy, what's your view there? Where's the value?
There's two sets of values. One is the asset base and the long-term capital appreciation or not of that asset base, and the lease structures and the financial structures behind that asset base. And then we're seeing there's clearly a load of value in shared economy as well. Essentially what's happening is a translation that's making that product available to the user base in a way that the asset managers haven't traditionally been able to because of lease structures and investment profiles. So I don't view that as an either or, I view that as a complementary economy.
Well, just to give you some numbers, A lot of investment in the co-working market in the last 2 to 3 years. WeWork collected $900 million over 4 rounds of funding in the last 4 years. The Office Group was financed by Lloyd Dorfman a few years ago, £43 million. Know Your House is coming to London in January. They took part of the Delphi building, again, $25 million. Spaces, as you know, was bought by Regus, amount not disclosed. LI New York City, $16 million a few months ago. Galvanize, United States, $18 million. Remix from Paris, €1 million. Talent Garden from Italy, €1 million. Copernico, a fantastic operator in Milan, is going for €10 million funding. Apple3 in the UK got £1 million. Second Home, couple of £1 million investment from 20 entrepreneurs. And United States from Sweden is now going for €3 million funding. Now, we discussed about brands. You may have read this morning or yesterday evening about Marriott buying Starwood Group for $12 billion. Starwood owns 22 brands, hotel brands, I think. That's a lot of brands to manage. With Marriott, they will have probably 30 now. I doubt you can name more than 10 workspace brands, probably 8 brands. There are different views in the sector. We have operators like the Office Group in the UK, very, very strong, that has a very clear unbranded strategy. Also the London executive offices, pretty established in London, again, unbranded. And of course you have Regus with Spaces, you have WeWork, Google Campus, a very branded concepts, and then you have eOffice, Tech Hub, Central Working. You will also simultaneously have all these new clubs coming up in London and overseas, Soho House, Shoreditch House, Home House. What's your view of branding? Will the potential billion freelancers in the next 20, 30 years go for very strong brands of workplaces, or do you think the unbranded office space is still got a place in the market? Let's start from Juliette this time.
So I think the brand reinforces your own corporate brand. So you belong to Club WeWork, Club Second Home, Club whatever it happens to be, and they become complementary brands. However, what's fascinating to me is that within Second Home there is almost no corporate signage. There is almost no company identity within the individual spaces, and the ideology behind that is very much that it's a community first, and then individually you're your own company. And so I think as long as the product offering, the environment, the vibe, the business development services you get resonates with the user, then the question of brand or unbrand will be down to the individual. And there's room in the market for both, but there's obviously a very strong sense, certainly within WeWork, that you belong to this community, and that brand expresses your sense of membership, and that it's a tribe. This is a global tribe of workers, whether corporate workers or freelance workers, who view themselves as working in this more flexible, unique way.
Certainly. But Devin, I'm very surprised that you don't wear the WeWork t-shirt. The founder of WeWork is very heavily branded with this t-shirt, and obviously as you walk into your environments, the brand is a bit all over the place. What's your view there?
I mean, we try to keep the logo, somewhat minimized. I mean, clearly we have a brand, and we want, that there to be a value in the offering, and we want people to feel like they're part of something when they come in, or part of WeWork. But we really kind of see ourselves as more of like a magazine, where there's a masthead and it's got our logo on it, but really we're a framework, for the community inside of it, and that we really kind of want them to kind of have their own individual expression, and that to really be the focus.
Fantastic. Eric, level 39?
Yeah, so for us there's a very clear strategy around the brands, and that is a quality mark. So by creating probably what we think in fintech is one of the most optimized, so we create competition in fintech, and therefore we really do see from right across Europe and around the world probably most of the fintech deal flow. By creating competition for the right to be in the space, and still charging, reasonable market rates. Then we notice and we encourage, for example, the investors to consider if a company's come into our space, they've been through our due diligence process, somebody looks at their business model, the team, etc. So that's kind of like a quality mark, that's at the basic level. But then within the space, we've also created this proposition of graduation. So once you've been within the co-working space here on level 39, you can graduate to high growth space 42 or 24. And so now we have an investor community that's starting to say, oh, I'd like to see the companies that are just about to graduate because they're a sign of growth. And so we've created the club lounge next door for the investors and mentors to hang out and do deal making and dining. And they're very keen to meet the high growth companies. So the brand, firstly, is a quality mark, and then within the brand, the value is that as you graduate, you become more attractive to the community you want to attract.
Martijn?
I co-founded Spaces together with Martijn Chadha, and he was the owner and founder of Max Fashion and also Citizen M. And he's quite good in brands. And what you see from branding perspective is a kind of recognition, kind of, for example, we started with a kind of buy spaces, but then we heard I'm at Spaces. And all the companies, they rented offices at us, because when we started it was only World Trade Center. You had a World Trade Center, and you had office buildings, and the rest there was none in a way of branded and a recognized level. So we started to structure a level of like-minded and experience, hospitality, service, killer coffee, and we created a sense of, oh, that's really cool, that's nice. And there you see, from a retail perspective, or a Primark or a Prada, you recognize yourself into where you want to work at, and where the same people are. And how you, of course, that will influence the sense of your sales. And now we are going global. And if you're global and you have the same structure of setting the tone of voice as a WeWork or a Spaces, maybe Second Home or a Regis, also Regis start to rebrand itself, it creates a target audience, and we believe in target audiences. If you have target audience, it's good in your sales, good in your advertising, your marketing, and the level, of course, to create a low entrance for your public. And it makes it easier to attract the right employees, because the employees will make your brand. That's, I think, the essential part of nowadays the offices, that it's not only security and reception, no, it's the lifestyle environment of work, and it is really, really great.